Welcome to Czech Road Conference 2025, to our interview section. This time my guests are Alexandrem Walcher, CEO of ASFINAG Austria. Welcome.
Thank you.
And also Andreas Trenkel, CEO of German Autobahn GmbH des Bundes East Branch. Welcome.
Welcome.
Gentlemen, ASFINAG is a state-owned joint stock company, while Autobahn is more like a limited liability company. What does this actually mean in practice in terms of operations, financing and decision-making? What are the main differences?
Maybe I start off. Well, our situation of ASFINAG in Austria is probably worldwide unique because we've got the right to collect tolls and the vignette, and all revenues we get from tolling we reinvest in our network. So we don't get any subsidies from the government. It's the other way around. Every year we pay about 300 million euros as a dividend to the government. So the advantage of the system is that all the money we collect, we also reinvest in our infrastructure, and we can make our own infrastructure programs, and that is a very reliable system.
And really very unique. How it is in Germany?
It's totally different because we get our budget from the government, and every year the parliament decides and has to give our budget free.
So it's in a way as we know it here in the Czech Republic. But then what is the situation? Because what's really different in both of your countries from Czech Republic is the state of the infrastructure. You have it built already. We are still working on it. But are you also facing the challenges in the way of financing the maintenance, or what problems are you facing right now?
If I start again, is the biggest challenge for us is that our network is really aging now, because we constructed most of our infrastructure network in the 70s and 80s of the last century, and now it's 50, 60, 70 years old, and it needs to be renewed. So there's a big shift from new construction into maintenance, as you mentioned before. And therefore, it is very, very important to make long-term plans. And therefore, this is our advantage again. Since we know how much money we're going to collect from tolling, we can plan 10, 15 years in advance. And so we can secure a working and functioning network. And I think many other countries in the world would love to have the situation as we do.
Definitely.
For example, Germany.
That's right. That's right. We know what we have to do to renew our infrastructure, and we made large plans in a big time space. We are planning 10 years in future, and so we know how many money we need to have a reliable infrastructure.
That's great that you have the perspective of 10 years. But then what sources of financing are the best? You already, Alexander, you mentioned that you have the tolls, you have the highway payments. Is there some other ways you may get money for?
Well, I think the fairest approach is to reuse the money you get from the users of your infrastructure to reinvest in infrastructure. But not many countries in the world have this advantage because there's always a government between the users and the spender, like in Germany, for example. But there is new approaches like PPP models. They do work ever so often. The challenge is that it's time consuming in the preparing of a PPP project, and you have to make sure that these private concessionaires last for like 15, 20 years, because one thing is to build the motorway, the other one is to operate it and to maintain it. And this is at least as important as construction new motorways, is to make sure that in 10, 15, 20 years you still have got an existing network.
What would you add? Because there you said you are dependent on the money from the state.
Yes.
Do you have like a multiple years financing framework for your projects when you are planning 10 years in advance?
No, we don't have actually. We are planning and we know how much money we need to have a reliable infrastructure, but every year we have to fight for this money.
Okay, so we know that situation as well here in Czech Republic. What is also very different between your two countries is the attitude toward speed limits from the unlimited one to 100 kilometer per hour limit on the highway. What are the reasons for these decisions?
I think it's a historical theme, yeah, and we only have spaces with no speed limit. We also have limited areas. We are looking after the traffic, and if there are happening accidents or something like that, we have to reduce the speed. But our theme is, we say our tracks are so designed to drive without speed limit, but when they're not designable because of topography, we need to get into a speed limit.
Yeah, for example, when it's more hilly, there we can sometimes see 120 even, which is for German quite low.
Yeah. Well, this was one of the reasons why we've got speed limits is our topography, obviously, and the hilly and mountainous areas we have got. The other one is we also always put a very big focus on road safety, and I think speed limits are important, but it is a very emotional discussion. And what happened in Austria as well as in many other European countries is because of environmental reasons or concerns, we got more and more speed limits, for example, for noise reduction. If you reduce speed, you have less noise emissions, and obviously also because of air pollution. But facing new times with new technologies, electrification of our car fleet will probably solve loads of these environmental concerns, but there's always and still road safety. But as my colleague Andreas said before or today already, it is a holy cow. If you touch speed limits, you've got loads of friends, but at least as many enemies as well.
Since the problem is there, you can't, in Austria, you can't touch the low speed limit. In Germany, you can't touch the unlimited speed limit, which is very different. Yeah. Andreas, you wanted to add something?
But at the end, the decision of speed limit, yes or not, is a political decision. Yeah, it has to come from the government, and so we will see. But I also agree with you, if we got more electrical vehicles on our motorways, so the average speed will slow down. And then maybe it's time to discuss this again.
And then you won't need that strict speed limits, probably, because they will go slower anyway because of the capacity.
Yeah, exactly. It's a capacity question as well. Sometimes it's actually a theoretical discussion, because in Austria we had a discussion to reducing the general speed limits on motorways from 130 to 100 kilometers per hour. But if you look at our network, there's very, very few motorways. We have got so little traffic that you can really drive 130 all the time. And so that won't make much difference for the environment. So as I said before, it's a very emotional discussion.
Let me get back to the financing. Because when there was like a try of a topic of paying for German highways, we saw that it was really another topic, no-go for Germans. Mm-hmm. But with the changing needs, is it something that will come to the place again?
Yeah, I think the discussion will start in future. So we have Maut only for tracks, but these money goes directly to the government, and then they serve it to the other areas. Yeah? But I think the discussion of Maut for everybody will be start maybe in the next time.
So it's still there?
No, I just wanted to add maybe something. It is always a question of acceptance of a tolling system. And if you look at the Austrian system, that all users of our roads are insured and can be sure that the money they pay for using the motorways is reinvested in the infrastructure, it's much easier to argue than the German or other countries' examples where it goes to the general budget of a government and it's used for, which is important as well, hospitals, education, all the other things.
But you never know how much will get back to the system.
Exactly, and if you then look at the status of some motorways, and without judging the German system, but if you look at some bridges situation in Germany, sometimes they can't ensure for the long-term future that they can run the motorway. So using the money you get from the users of the motorway to reinvest in the motorway is definitely the best way to deal with it, but that's a political question, as we both know very well.
Yeah, that's right.
One more topic that Alexander mentioned, and I haven't asked you yet, is the public-private partnership. Mm-hmm. Do you also work with that? How do you cooperate with the private sector?
We do work in the past years, and I think it's a model which can work, but you have to prepare careful.
Exactly.
That's right. And maybe you have to check what financial situation is now reliable, and so it may be a chance to get over a period of lower budgets.
Mm-hmm. True.
It may help, definitely. That's what we are learning here, finally, with a good experience from last year. But to sum up, what lessons can other countries learn from your experience? Alexander starts again.
Well, I think what Germany and Austria have in common is that we take our responsibility for our motorways very serious. That lowering the carbon footprint of motorways, that decarbonization is a very important factor for our network, and that we are part of the mobility chain and not just motorway planners and motorway operators is something that Austria and I think Germany as well have in common, and that we see our motorways as part of the mobility chain.
Thank you. Andreas, what you would...
At first, especially in form of our Autobahn GmbH, we can learn a lot about ASFINAG, about the financial model, about the maintenance system, and that's why we look over the border and look what ASFINAG do.
And we'll work close together. Yeah.
So,
gentlemen, thank you for sharing your insights, your experience. That was Andreas Walcher and Alexander Walcher and Andreas Trenkel. Yeah, I merged your names, which are both Germans, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michaela.